cheated if in later on this video, Sean, but it is a good question. All right, good stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC. And of course, as always, I'm your humble host. I want to thank for all the love that we've been getting on Patreon. If you have not become a patron subscriber, you can help the show continue to grow and fight demonetization by YouTube, arbitrary demonetization that actually makes no sense, that has no consistency. And as I have just found out, there are times where we've been demonetized where they're actually running ads on our channel still. So in other words, YouTube is still getting paid for our videos. But now, instead of splitting the profit with us, they're keeping 100% of the profit. So, which, to be honest, might be the ultimate goal behind demonetization, if you're talking about it from a monetary aspect. So if you have not yet, please help keep the show growing by becoming a patron on Patreon. Literally, if 100 people donated today, we would have 500. If 100 people donated $5, we would have 500 extra dollars a month to go towards covering the stories that need to be covered, traveling to those places to make sure those stories get covered, etc. So greatly appreciate it. If you have not become one, it's www.patreon.com/MCSC, or you can click on the link in the description below. With that being said, I want to cover something, and I know that this might be a shocker to some of you, okay? This might cause you to clutch your pearls a little bit. Unless you just started paying attention, and then you might not be all that shocked. Or excuse me, unless you just started paying attention, then you really might be shocked. But people who've been paying attention, you should not be shocked by this news at all. And unfortunately, the news is that the DNC has already rigged 2 out of the first 3 major primary elections. Those elections being the Iowa caucus, which obviously most of us know is a big tone setter. The DNC, not even just the DNC, the Republican Party too. Iowa is kind of unpredictable. They know that. It was so unpredictable the last election that they thought Bernie Sanders was going, and Martin O'Malley, they were the only 2 left at the time. But they thought that Bernie Sanders was going to get obliterated by Hillary in Iowa, if you all recall. And then it turned out to not be the case. Now, what's even more interesting about the caucuses is that we saw long term, for those of you who were paying attention in 2015 and 2016, what happened with actually all the caucus races. They all favored Bernie Sanders. In other words, they all favored progressives. It's harder to rig an election when people are there to say, you're not going to take this from me. When people are there documenting the events happening. Caucuses are a pretty antiquated way to hold an election, but there are some benefits, at least benefits for the needs of the progressive movement to ensure that rigging isn't taking place. So Iowa and Nevada are both caucuses. Iowa and Nevada are very early on. And if anybody remembers Iowa and Nevada from 2016, you knew that they were going to try and do, I mean, the Nevada situation got crazy out of hand. And they tried to blame the Bernie supporters, and it turned out it was, of course, it was Hillary supporters. And then the Iowa caucuses, Bernie ended up tying last minute. And then that was when we first were introduced, at least that early on in the race, that was when we were first introduced to superdelegates. They were like, yeah, Bernie and Hillary tied, but it's going to go, Iowa's going to go to Hillary. Well, why? There's these things called superdelegates, and they've already picked Hillary. Based off of what? Because they like Hillary. But Bernie won. Yeah, but democracy doesn't necessarily work like that, you see? That's where we're at. So some of you may be saying, well, maybe this wasn't the DNC doing this. You might be being too hyperbolic. Maybe you're not getting a full grasp of what's happening. Maybe Iowa decided to take it upon itself to fix this system, to make sure that more people were able to participate, and it's altruistic and all that good stuff. No. Nope, unfortunately. I wish. This is literally what it says. The tele-caucus system is the result of a mandate from the Democratic National Committee and are aimed at opening the local level political gatherings to more people, especially evening shift workers and people with disabilities, whom critics of caucuses have long said are blocked from the process. Now, here's the issue with that. They're letting people phone in by telephone to cast their vote. In this same article, they admit that it's not secure. They admit it. You say, "Oh well," is it unhackable? No. Huh? What do you mean? Is it unhackable? No. Nah, I'm gonna need. Well, it's about as unhackable as any machine could possibly be, but of course, that's not how it's gonna work. These people are literally casting their votes through the phone, bruh. So basically, I can buy 18 different Metro PCS phones, some little Cricket phones, and I can just call and cast my vote. And then you on the other side of that line, likely a member of the Democratic Party of Iowa, likely a Democratic Party loyalist, you on the other line of that phone can easily take that vote and push it to whoever you'd like. The machines, they admit it, are hackable. So even if everything does go right for Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard, they could easily flip those votes. They could easily use what's called fraction magic, where basically you're limited to a certain percentage of votes no matter how many votes you get, and the other person will get a certain percentage of votes no matter how many votes are casted against them. I don't know how many ways you could have gotten this wrong in a worse way. This is the shit that gives Republicans ammunition. Because Republicans always say Democrats are trying to steal the election. Democrats are always trying to cast more votes than they have. But they don't know that in the primary, they use Republican tactics. They usually suppress votes. Now, some would say now don't get me wrong, I'm all about more access to democracy within regulation, like within common sense. I'm all for access to democracy if we are going to practice an equal amount of accountability for that democracy, which we have not seen. And for the Democratic Party to all of a sudden pretend to be altruistic when it comes to election, oh, we just really want more people to participate. So why have you held nobody accountable for the election rigging that took place in New York, Arizona, California, Nevada? Hell, one of the races in the Iowa caucuses was apparently decided by an illegitimate coin flip. I mean, the rigging was going on all over the place. And you didn't care. You were suppressing votes. You were dropping registration. And now you want to pretend to be altruistic in your intentions. Okay, if you were going to pretend to be altruistic in your intentions, so how about we answer this question, DNC, specifically Tom Perez and the Rules and Bylaws Committee? It's what? It's July the 10th. July 10th. Tom Perez has been in charge of DNC basically since the election ended, maybe 6-7 months after that, I want to say. About 6 or 7 months after that. I remember in May or June at the People's Summit, they were still campaigning for the DNC chair position. So he's been in charge for a while. Rules and Bylaws Committee was selected quite some time ago. The Unity Commission was put in place quite some time ago as well. And if I'm not mistaken, now I have to re-verify this, so don't quote me on this, the Unity Commission was disbanded, of course, very soon after they implemented the new rules, the ones that limit delegates to the second round. So you've been in power basically since 2017. You had a whole rules and bylaws committee. You've been had a rules and bylaws committee, if you recall. You had a unity commission to make sure everything was on the up and up. So at the bare minimum, you would have some type of transparency to the progressive movement. And now in 2019, months before the elections, after you realize, okay, Bernie's looking a little bit more unstoppable than we originally anticipated, Tulsi's kind of on our ass right now. Hell, even Gravel is very close to making the debate stage. The Gravel teams just tweeted out that they are about 2 days away from making the debate stage, bro. Go donate to them. That's also another. We already know what Mike Gravel did to Joe Biden last time, ended that man's whole presidential career during the Obama elections. So please, for the love of God, put Gravel on the debate stage. Go donate. So in other words, they realize that the progressive movement is it's better than what they thought. We're stronger than what they thought. They don't have as much control as what they thought. So they've basically gone to out and out election rigging, plain and simple. And they did it in 2019, trying to convince us that it was for altruistic reasons. Well, we just are so concerned with the caucus process. You haven't been concerned with the caucus process this entire time. Yeah. People in Iowa have complained about it at times. People in Nevada have complained about it at times. The DNC hasn't done anything about it. You didn't have a problem with the caucus process when you thought it was going to benefit Hillary. You didn't have a problem with the caucus process before Bernie Sanders started running. You didn't have a problem with the caucus process 2 years ago, but you got a problem with the caucus process after Bernie Sanders gets $30 million on that ass. After you thought you beat him handedly in the debate, and he still raises $2 million in 24 hours after the debate. You thought you had more control over the situation than you did, so now you've gone to out and out rigging. The Iowa caucus had to even report what they were going to do to the Rules and Bylaws Committee of the Democratic National Committee, because it was the Democratic National Committee who forced them to implement this system. Yeah. No, I want you all to understand something. And this is important. This is rigging. Plain and simple. Telephones, bruh. Telephones. Call in and vote. What is this, a radio show marathon? Like, are we competing for tickets? I know we're competing for the presidential ticket, but this isn't like going to a concert where the ninth caller gets the tickets and that's who you get to pick who's president. But that's basically what they're trying to make it. Tulsi tried to stop this from happening once again. And this is becoming a pretty frequent pattern. Tulsi tried to warn Trump administration about the CIA in Syria and how they were lying to him. He pulled the CIA out. Then the administration banned her from the office. And guess what happened next? Chemical weapons were launched. Turned out to be another lie. Tulsi was the one who got it right, but they didn't listen, so lies were lost. Tulsi had the OFF Act. Said the Paris Accords were not far enough. The Green New Deal is not far enough. She kept saying there are going to be people that put out nonsensical BS legislation that actually does not address the issue of climate change. Here's a chance. We can fix it right now. They ignored it while propping up these resolutions that don't do anything. It's just a bunch of loud talking. Yes. Great sound bites for the campaigns, everybody. And now we're losing more and more time every day when it comes to climate change because Bernie Sanders and AOC and a few others won't even mention the words of the OFF Act, despite the fact that it's the most supported legislation by environmental and climate change organizations in the history of the world. 400 endorsements. Nobody says. So then we fast forward to Iran, where she said the Trump administration is about to try to manufacture consent by planting BS stories and blaming Iran. She said it on ABC. Guess what happens in a month? Tulsi said, okay, cool. Y'all want to blame Russia for the rigged elections, although she knows what time it is. She knows what's up. Y'all want to blame Russia for rigged elections? Fine. Let's make sure no one can hack our elections again. Securing America's Elections Act. Voter verified paper ballots. Bruh. So then isn't that a weird coincidence, by the way? Don't you find that interesting? That Tulsi created a bill. Funny enough, the first time she introduced it was in 2017. Then she reintroduced it again in 2019. Then all of a sudden this caucus conversation comes up. Because Tulsi's legislation would have made it, once again, being ahead of the game, understanding how they rigged these systems. Because like I said, first conversation I ever had with Tulsi was in 2016 in March to discuss election rigging. For an hour. It's a major concern for her. Has been. And it was a major concern for her even though she was in a safe state as far as her congressional seat is concerned. So this has been a pillar of something she's wanted to deal with for quite some time. So she studied it. Her policy team is great when it comes to election rigging. Or at least when it comes to legislating against election rigging. And she introduced legislation to stop things like this from happening. Guess what did not get passed? Securing America's Elections Act. Guess whose legislation got stolen? Tulsi Secured America's Elections Act. Got stolen by the establishment. Got passed. It's not going to get passed in the Senate, but it'll get passed in the House. Or it got passed in the House, or excuse me. But basically, if Tulsi's legislation would have gotten passed by the House, would have gotten passed by the Senate, and it probably could have if people spoke up about it and were more worried about the sanctity of our democracy than winning a political campaign, than political brownie points. We've been talking about election rigging for this entire time, and nobody's wanted to address it. And now we're back. For those of you who don't know, I'm 1/3 of the people. So it's myself, Jared Beck, and Elizabeth Lee Beck. We created the DNC fraud lawsuit. We're still waiting to hear back to figure out when our case is going to be heard. As far as the discovery, we just left we're in the appellate court, the 11th Circuit appellate court right now, and if our appeal goes through, and it's looking like that it might, we just got to figure out what they're going to allow us to argue. If it goes through, then we'll be in the discovery stage. Once again, talking about election rigging. Tim Canova, his election got rigged. People didn't want to talk about it. Cynthia Nixon got her election rigged. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Right now, Caban is having her election rigged as we speak. Nobody's talking about it. Just a few of us. Tulsi tries to introduce legislation to stop this type of behavior from happening. Nobody wants to talk about it. How are we going to address the military-industrial complex if we don't address election rigging? How are we going to address climate change if we don't address election rigging? How are we going to get Nancy Pelosi out of power if we don't address election rigging? Y'all want Bernie in office? That's fine. I would like to see him there as well, even though I would like Tulsi to be there more so. But at least I know in a fair fight, Tulsi and Bernie can prove who's more progressive on the biggest stage in front of everybody. That's what I would like. But election rigging is not going to allow either of them to be on the greatest stage. And nobody wants to talk about it. Granted, there are some benefits. There are some benefits to so many candidates running because the Iowa caucus will be split up amongst the establishment. But if those people start dropping out after the Iowa caucus, right, you could have a problem. Let me check out some of these super chats. K, thanks for the super chat. Kamala is done. No black agenda, no vote. She's been done. Darius Sadigi. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Thanks for keeping us informed. No problem, man. This is, I said, journalism for me is not only for myself, but for Pasta and Fiorella as well, and Johnny Tsunami, our super producer. It's our form of activism. It's another form of our activism that's people know originally, and a lot of y'all don't know me. But like, for example, Nina Turner we've known each other for quite some time now. And she didn't even know I had a show. She knew me from activism. She knew me from organizing. Most people, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, they knew who I was, but it wasn't from the show. It was from activism. That's how they knew Pasta. That's how they knew Fiorella, was from activism. We've been in the trenches. And then I've realized, okay, cool. I'm actually pretty good at the commentary thing. So maybe I can use that to guide the conversation towards organizing and activism and telling the truth, exposing the lies and the complacency that we've seen amongst people who are supposed to be our allies. We have to address election rigging. Now, one way that we can do this as far as the Iowa caucus and the Nevada caucus is concerned, I want you all to take down this phone number. This is the phone number for the Democratic National Committee. Oh yeah. The number is 202-863-8000. Take a screenshot of it. Remember it. Call them. Flood their voicemails. Flood their voicemails. Tell them they need to change it back. They need to hold off until we can vet this new telecast system that they want to use. This is also their mailing address. Send them mail. Flood them. Seriously. We need them to know that we're not going to put up with this. Tell them, okay, literally you should put in an email, oh, so y'all must want Trump again. Okay, don't fix this system by the time the Iowa caucus gets here. And you're going to see that we're not playing. The same thing will happen again. Once again, that number is, if you just now tune in, 202-863-8000. The mailing address is the Democratic National Committee, 430 South Capitol Street, Southeast Washington, D.C., 20003. Okay? Get in contact with them. I did not get the email. Let me see if I can find the email real quick. They don't have an email because they want you to file, fill out the little form so they can send you promotions and ask for money. They don't have an email listed, but call them, leave them messages, mail them, at them on Twitter, at the DNC right now. If you're on Twitter, at the DNC. If you're on Facebook, at the DNC, at Tom Perez. Expose them for the frauds that they are. You can't play us, bro. You implement these rules after the Unity Commission. After you've been in power for 2.5 years. In 2019. After you realize, man, I might not be able to beat Bernie. Like, come on. This is getting ridiculous. So, and also, y'all need to start adding some of these politicians who aren't talking about Tulsi Gabbard securing America's Elections Act. Because if Tulsi would have gotten her legislation pushed through, if her legislation would have gotten traction, Think about it. People say, oh, we don't know if that's going to happen. Bernie managed to get the Amazon bill pushed through because everybody covered it. There was a mandate. That's the power of a progressive mandate. It can happen. Bernie got the Amazon bill pushed through because of the mandate. You have to understand that as terrified as we are of election rigging, as powerless as we may feel at times, we do have a power of a mandate still. The DNC is broke. They are not going to be able to secure funds if they don't start winning, and winning at a high level, and winning frequently. That has not been the case as of late. At this rate, if we threaten them, say, hey, you're gonna lose back the House too, you're gonna lose the Senate again, you're gonna lose the House again, or you're gonna re-lose the House, and Trump's gonna remain in power. Keep playing. Well, hey, look, we survived 4 years, everybody. We'll survive 4 more. I promise. The bad things that happened during Trump's administration, unfortunately, were happening before that. Unfortunately, even still, you know that Bernie actually put out a statement in 2016 that I actually completely missed, where he was calling out Obama for doing to immigrants what Trump is doing now, as in essentially sending people into cities to round up immigrants for deportation, no matter what their status, even if they had put in paperwork, if they were applying for asylum. Basically, he was rounding them all up, and Bernie called that out. So this has been happening. It's not new. Trump just gave them more funding. He gave ICE more funding. That's about it. But cops were racist before ICE. Okay, that all these the investigations that are going on between the Border Patrol, or within Border Patrol and within ICE, because the racist Facebook groups got discovered and the sexist Facebook groups got discovered. You think that those people just became racist because Trump came in office? No. You decided to make a living off of literally deporting South Americans and Central Americans. That's your job if you're ICE. Yeah, you're supposed to get all the immigrants if they're not legal, if they're undocumented. You're supposed to, but who do they go after? Yeah. It's not a coincidence. All this stuff has been here. So either you're going to solve the problem for real, or we're just going to, well, hell, we'll be screwed together then. DNC, I can't get a decent paying job. I can't get I'm okay. But the country has to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Oh, DNC, you must not want a job either then. That's cool. That's cool. And that way, after this DNC fraud lawsuit goes through, the DNC party is completely obliterated after they get sued for $900 million, because that's how much the damages are. We've calculated them. You don't win this election. You don't win. You don't beat Trump. You lose the House again, which is if you nominate anybody other than Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard, you will lose the House again. You will lose the Senate, probably more seats than before, because Trump has that ability to galvanize his base. He's gonna lie through his teeth about the accomplishments that he's done, but he's also going to tell some truths, like him reaching out to North Korea, like him stopping the war in Iran against the wishes of the administration. So he's going to tell some truths. The truths are going to be just enough to convince people that the lies are also true, and he's going to win. And you're going to be out of a job, because the DNC fraud lawsuit will have picked up and probably almost have concluded in the next 2 years, depending on who we can get at the time frame of when we can get witnesses. So you will lose. You will lose your job. There will be no opportunities for the Democratic Party. You will be obliterated, and we will move on. Let me check out some of these super chats. Michael Koresh, we are at war. This is a battle tactic. We have to get enough arrows to blot out the sun. Then we will fight in the shade. That is the truth. And to be honest with you, we need arrows of truth because people are so concerned with their follow. Man, it's killing me. It sucks to see this. People don't want to call out AOC. And anybody who knows me, I give AOC credit when it's due. She called out Nancy Pelosi, although it was a bit of a, she wasn't like treating her like I would treat her, but she called her out. Finally, I gave her credit for that on Twitter. But when she fucks up, I'm gonna call her ass out too. Because our allies it's something weird, yo. When you sacrifice a little bit of your integrity and nobody says anything about it, you say, well, I got away with it last time, I'll do the same thing again. And guess what happens? They do it again. They get away with it. And you've built such a strong support base, such a strong echo chamber, that you don't want to actually address the problems with the things that you were doing and the concerns and getting off message, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What happens? They don't change. They get worse and worse. They don't get better. AOC voting for Pelosi was a problem. AOC pushing for Cuomo instead of addressing the election rigging we saw take place was a problem. AOC being consistently silent over this Caban situation is a problem. And nobody wants to call her out on it. Everybody wants to pat her on the back every time she cusses out a Republican. So what? Republicans are the Senate and the House Republicans are mostly trash. Okay, and what? We know this. Fox News is propaganda. Okay, and what? We know this. That's what we're celebrating people for? For cussing out Republicans? Like, that's easy. Rashida Tlaib, Tulsi Gabbard, Ilhan Omar. Those people looking to hold their party accountable. Warmongers accountable. Ayanna Pressley has done better than AOC as far as not trying to gain the favor of the establishment at the expense of her integrity and progressivism. And Ayanna Pressley is kind of late to the party. She was a former Hillary supporter. Cheryl Tyler, thanks for the super chat. Why isn't AOC speaking up about Caban? And why is she promoting the corporatist warring and not endorsing Bernie? She wouldn't be in Congress if it weren't from Bernie. Look, I know it. You ain't said nothing slick to a can of oil, Cheryl, but I'm glad people are picking it up. And she's falling, and people haven't seen, even though I predicted this, she's falling out of grace. And people they're like kind of blinded because some of these celebrities and some of these big names on Twitter, that those big names on Twitter aren't what win you elections. The people in the Bronx are paying attention. The people in Queens are paying attention. Twitter is a way to help you win elections, but it is not the only way. You can lose an election in other ways. Not maintaining your mandate is the main way to lose an election. And if she gets beat, understand that's going to be a message to anybody who tries to run as a progressive and thinks they're going to switch up when they get in office. They're going to do what their ego tells them to do. They're going to toe the line. This, like I said, every single time AOC props up Warren, she's knife in the back to Bernie. Every single time. To the movement. Every single time. It's things like that, not addressing election rigging, like I said, that bothers me when people get this type of mandate. Bernie and AOC have the biggest mandates, probably if we're talking about combined influence, they have the biggest mandate that the progressive left has ever seen. And they're pushing, let's declare climate change as an emergency resolutions. Or we could push a bill that addresses the emergency. The Green New Deal already said climate change is an emergency. How many times we want to say climate change is an emergency? We talked about climate change in the Democratic debate. Talk about climate change every time Bernie opens his mouth, every time Tulsi opens her mouth, every time AOC opens her mouth. They say different things, but it's all predicated on the idea that climate change is indeed an emergency that needs to be dealt with. So why not push the bill that is already crafted? Why? I'll tell you why before we go. Because people are more concerned with campaigning than they are with doing the right thing. They're more concerned with winning elections being the victory of the establishment, rather than winning the movement and having victories for the people. Do you think that Tulsi introduced the Securing America's Elections Act because she wanted to make sure she won? So why did she talk to me while she was on Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016? Still on Bernie's campaign, March of 2016, so it's very early on. And she's talking to me for an hour about election rigging. Doesn't know who I am. I'm a senior in college, people. Senior in college, in charge of one of the college clubs for Bernie. Talking to me for an hour about election rigging. And then introduces legislation to address it. You think she's playing about climate change? You think this is a gimmick for her? This is a marketing thing? Okay, so she introduced the OFF Act, and nobody knew she introduced it. And she's still introducing it, never getting credit for it. People can say what they want to say, but like at the end of the day, when you have somebody, I'm not even saying you got to vote for Tulsi. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you have somebody who's literally putting legislation right in front of you to address these issues. Election rigging being a main one. If Tulsi's legislation got passed, we wouldn't be having this conversation. If Tulsi's legislation was being talked about by AOC, if it was being talked about by Bernie, if it was being talked about by other progressive voices in media, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But yeah, let's keep debating the concerns we have with Tulsi. The concerns make us not talk about election integrity legislation. The concerns make us not talk about climate change legislation. The concerns make us not talk about her Stop Arming Terrorists legislation. The concerns make us not talk about the No More Presidential Wars legislation, her sexual assault legislation, her Equality for All legislation, making the LGBTQ community protected under the Civil Rights Amendments. The concerns make us not talk about what's clearly in front of us to solve a lot of our problems that we know can be solved with the progressives as a team using their mandate and saying, you know what, I'll get back to campaigning after we solve. Not obviously you're still going to campaign, but I'm saying I will worry about the issues first, my campaign second, my Twitter following second, my personal agenda second. But hey, whatever. Thanks for tuning into the live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, I'll put the phone number and everything in the description below. Go donate to Tulsi. She is at 130. Excuse me. Ooh, good guy. She's at 96,000. She needs about 130,000 total individual unique donations to make sure that she is in the third debate. Although we are sure she will secure it in the second debate, we do want to make sure that by the second debate she has at least 120,000 so that she can just catapult herself into the third debate by August. So with that being said, make sure you donate to her. If you want to help us combat demonetization, you can do that by going to Patreon, www.patreon.com/MikasSukasa, or clicking on the link in the description below. You can donate as little as $1 and help support the network. With all that being, and donate to Mike Gravel. They're almost there. Go do it. Go do it right now. They're almost there. The teens reached out to me the other day. They're really, really close, people. If you have not donated $1 to Mike Gravel and you're a Tulsi fan, you are wrong. The reason why is because Mike Gravel is going to get up on that stage and endorse Tulsi Gabbard. That's what he wants to do with his time. He wants to call those people out, but he wants to endorse Tulsi Gabbard. That's what he wants to do. Could you imagine how huge that would be? A lot of people would be kind of wondering, like, okay, why am I not seeing more about this woman? Imagine the headlines for 3, 4, 5, 6 days where, for the first time in history, a presidential candidate on the debate stage endorses a down ticket candidate that most people didn't even know about. So if you have not donated to Mike Gravel yet, go do it. $1. They don't need much. $1 may secure Tulsi's historic endorsement. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance.